Morning all. I thought it would be interesting to have a look at the round 2 game between Levon Aronian playing white and Magnus Carlsen playing black. I thought it was a very interesting choice of opening indeed from Magnus Carlsen. Let's see, d4 from Levon, and Magnus replied with the Dutch defence, and this makes me feel a lot better because sometimes my particular interest area is actually the variation of the Dutch defence, which Magnus Carlsen chooses here, g6, the Leningrad Dutch. I've always thought there's something quite interesting and aggressive about this, some similarities to the King's Indian defence, but it's kind of accelerated because this pawn has moved before the knight, and instead of going for the king side you can sometimes aim to play like this later after castling to get a pawn on e4. That's one of the plans. There's many plans, so let's see how this game panned out. Knight c3, bishop g7. Now, a very unusual move. In live book, the most common move here is actually g3, 187 games, e3, 59 games. But this move Levon plays as bishop f4, which is only about 34 games. So bishop f4, very interesting. Now Magnus reacts with d6, which is actually the most popular move. e3 is the most popular move here. And now black usually just castles here, 42 games. And these other moves are very few, like we're talking less than 5 games each for c6, e6, knight h5. And what Magnus played, knight c6 here. We see, okay, so we're out of book really. It's not too much book now. Bishop e2. And let's just put on Akabitsa here. So, a solid position for white. Looks a bit like a London system, except the pawn is on c4 and this knight's more aggressive. So, you know, white may be looking forward to strike with c5 to bite on this chain later. Possible. For the moment, both sides castle. And here actually, a very energetic move indeed from Magnus Carlsen. He doesn't go for this bishop, and actually, if we just rewind actually one move back from here, in live book the most common move, very small game sample, was actually h3. So 3 people were concerned about their bishop here, maybe, you know, for ideas like knight h5 and it being chased, but that wasn't the concern, and Magnus still not going for knight h5 here. I think this is what Magnus played is actually knight e4, and that might be a lot better actually. Knight h5 is mentioned from the engine kibitzer, but white is actually doing quite well here with either bishop g5 or d5, even d5 offering double pawns. This could be very, very nice for white. If we have a look at this hole on e6 for example, the double pawns actually mean though that white's pressure on the e file is amplified. So this looks quite nice. Knight c3, bishop f3, white standing better here. This pawn's really fixed, it's a backward pawn on that semi-open file. So let's go back. So in this position, you know, if knight h5, d5 is good, well, I mean, other things as well. Bishop g5 is also possible, and even this situation here, it looks as though like the bishop's being trapped. If it goes to, you know, g3, it's almost like trapped, but it's still got the h4 square after f4. But even better, d5 here again, and you know, this is interesting. I think white's doing quite nicely here. So even knight d4 just counter-attacking here, and this is solid for white. So Magnus actually plays a very, very good move. He's not tempted for knight h5. It seems white's better even with bishop g5 or even d5, but Magnus plays actually knight e4. This presents much greater challenge. What does white do to react to this appropriately? Let's see. I mean, an obvious capture on e4. F takes e4, and okay, there's double pawns, but there's a blasting rook down the f file. There's more pressure on d4 if this knight's moving. So let's say knight g5, and in fact, actually, there's a tactical point here, which might be a little bit subtle. Which I wonder if you can spot it. if I give you 10 seconds here, this is quite aggressive stuff using that F file. Okay, so that's the clue. What can black play here if I gave you 10 seconds starting from now? Okay, maybe Magnus had seen this, and knight takes d4 is the point. So that f4 bishop is loose. What can white do here? So if he takes, we take here. This is nice for black. I think even giving up that pawn here is not a problem. It's equal on pawns again, and this is better, slightly better for black actually. Okay, so in this position, what else? If not taking there, if taking here, just c6, ignoring the knight for a moment. Let's go with this, knight e6. Black's doing well. He's knocked out a centre pawn. His bishop's very nice. Both bishops are very nice. And there's dynamic play. I think black's slightly better. So basically, after knight e4, I'm not sure knight takes e4 is that good. And if we look at knight fd2, I think again knight takes d4, same pattern there, and black going to end up better. So it's got some venom, this knight e4. Levon played actually now h3. It's a bit meek. I mean, black's already like equal now after h3. That's a great achievement, I think, to use the Leningrad Dutch defense. Move 10 to be around about equal now after h3. Maybe a more aggressive move from an engine point of view at least is d5. And what happens here? Maybe white can take care. It's pretty sharp stuff. Okay, these double pawns are challenged here, and white might actually be slightly better there after d5 if black's not careful. But best, so not knight b4, best I think is knight takes c3, attacking the queen, doubling the pawns. Now knight e5, and that should be okay. This is okay for black. Structural damage, so everyone's avoided that. So by playing h3, the structural damage here, well, with the pawns more compact without d5, is not such an issue, I think, to take on c3 here. That just strengthens white's centre. It's not too bad. But it is tempting, to take on c3 and play e5, or just play e5. Magnus actually just plays e5. But definitely black's doing very nicely here. It's a very, very nice position to have with the black pieces. Now, e takes d4. E takes. And again, not being tempted to strengthen white's centre. Knight takes c3. We're just blunting really this bishop, and we can't, bite at the centre with any c5. So that's not the idea at all. The idea now is knight g5, just putting immense pressure on d4 by undermining the f3 knight. This is taken. Queen takes, and now an awkward move to have to play, blocking in one's own bishop. f4. If this isn't entirely forced to play f4 here. Or is it? Maybe potentially is almost, because if we go for c7 we could end up getting our king in serious trouble after f4, serious threats. Now bishop takes h3, so this is very nice for black. Very, very pleasant. Dark square control, huge knight on e5. This is the sort of thing you'll love to have with the black pieces here. Okay, so basically this f4 blocks in the bishop. Looks rather poxy on h2. Queen drops back and still pressure on d4. That now moves. And now knight d4. So black has got a slight advantage. Can Magnus do anything with it? King h1. He reinforces the knight. Bishop d3. Bishop d7. Now here it looks as though this bishop's and queen's beautiful on this diagonal, and they can't be interrupted, but it's got a sill on the e4 square. The natural plan structurally looks to be a6 and b5, because it can undermine first the d5 pawn on takes, and it can also put pressure on b2 and get coordination of rook and bishop and queen here. So we see white quite passive. Bishop g1. Now rook e8, maybe here an alternative, just going rook a b8 is an alternative, and for example rook b1, maybe even b5 just straight off the bat here. So what will be going on here? Would black actually be getting anything worthwhile from this? kind of situation? Well, I think so. Black's comfortable if he can nab a pawn here on any b3. You know, black is just standing quite nicely here with ideas of like rook b4 later. So maybe that rook b8 is going for b5 immediately is very interesting. But we see after bishop g1, rook a e8 instead. Okay, so what is Magnus up to here with rook a e8? We'll see queen d2. And then he plays a6 anyway. Okay. Rook a d1. And now the rook switches back to b8. So it looks as though, well, what just happened there? Well, now b5 does seem to be the clear, strategic plan once more. It's clamped down rather rudimentary, in a rudimentary way with a4. Now the problem with a4, it's like we've provoked this weakness on b4. Okay, now, black's got a nice knight on d4. How can he exploit the b4 square? Well, Magnus just retreats his queen. His queen's heading for that weakened b4 square. So, job done for a6 to provoke a4. Nice positional, creating weaknesses. Rook b1. So white looks to be very passive here. This looks to be a fantastic position for black. Queen a5 looks entirely logical. Is black actually threatening anything concretely here? Not just yet. Just to perch the queen on that weak square is the main thing. So queen d1. Okay, now maybe, instead of queen b4, which looks like the logical follow-up, rook b e8 would have certain ideas, maybe just a double on the e file now, potentially. But okay, the queen goes to b4. We see bishop f2. And now the f rook is still not moved. It's still the b rook now coming to the e file. Can black double on that e file usefully? Bishop e1 threatening to evict the queen. This is a nuisance for the queen. These discovery ideas now. So knight e4, maybe attacking b6 is a nuisance. So the queen actually goes to b3 here, offering the exchange of queens. What is there any better? If the queen, say, drops back against knight e4, then okay, b3 and white looks, he's holding. He's got a holding strategy just to hold position. His opening hasn't been a major success. He's just trying to keep solid, but it looks fair enough. So anyway, queen b3. Magnus not afraid, for the queens to come off, and actually they do. Queen takes, knight takes, bishop c2, evicting the knight or putting it potentially on a nice square d4. It looks very tempting just to go back to d4 here. But Magnus has another idea, knight a5, putting pressure on c4, bishop attacks. And now, okay, we see actually rook e3 attacking the bishop. Okay, and this is really quite dangerous. The bishop can't drop back. If white wants to lose a piece, he can do this. Maybe bishop takes c3, looks almost as if it's winning a piece. Not quite, because bishop takes c3 is on the knight here. But strong is just rook fe8 here. And then queen, rook b3, just to attack the rook, getting out of the way of the knight. This is very nice for black, this sort of position. But let's go back. So after rook e3, we see white just protecting again, just responding to the attack, just protecting. So it looks rather meek play from white. He's got some weakened dark squares. It looks, quite menacing. This bishop, it looks like superior pieces all round. The rooks, preparing to double the bishop on diagonal. The knight's a nuisance. So, but how can white concretely collapse here? How can black create collapse? Now, Magnus goes in as though he's going to play for b5 again. He plays actually rook b8 here. Let's just quickly check this position. Engine especially knight b3. What would be the idea if we follow this engine variation? What is black actually threatening? It's not entirely clear what structurally black is up to. Black looks better, but there's no structural break here. You know, if we play this just waiting around, pardon me, if we play bishop h4, where's the structural break? You know, white is still maintaining a solid position. With b5 clamped down, what is going on? So it's really interesting that it's difficult, it seems, to do anything that constructive. But rook b8, as though b5 is going to be on the cards at some point, maybe with bishop takes c3 and then b5. But this knight's a liability at the moment to this bishop. So bishop f2 though, kicking the rook away. Rook a1. Again, suppressing b5 because this knight's a liability. Bishop d4, you know, because takes would be on the knight. So bishop d4. And here, if Levon took, well, this would favour black. The temporary double pawns are not a problem. Rook bc8, and the knight's justified here. So this looks as though black has made some progress in this position. Okay, but no, after bishop d4, that's just ignored with king g1. And this is actually a very useful move, king g1, as we're about to see. After bishop e3, attacking f4, white doesn't really want to create too many weaknesses. He avoids playing g3 here. Okay, he just takes on e3, inviting seemingly menacing rook, protects the bishop. I know a lot of white's play here is simply protecting pieces and clamping down. So black's doubled here, but now a very nifty move from white, just to challenge the rooks. King f2, just to get the rooks off. White's advantage is like minimal here. Sorry, white's disadvantage is being minimized. Black's advantage is minimal, it seems, now. So knight b3, at least celebrating the d4 square still. Now the rooks are forcibly coming off. Okay, and it looks as though it's much more peaceful, the position. Knight d4, again, there's no real strategic break for black. King f7, bishop e2, king f6. And white just keeps very, very solid with bishop d1 here. What can black do? And Magnus kind of, in effect, offers a draw. He gives up on any b5 intention by playing a5. So, okay, I thought it was quite an interesting draw. It was a 40-move draw. The interesting point for me was the use of the Leningrad Dutch to achieve what seemed to be a really, really comfortable position. I think maybe, you know, going for the strategic break earlier from an engine point of view seemed quite promising. And when it wasn't played, it seems white was able to just defend and keep solid and just keep holding all the key squares. Okay, an interesting encounter. I hope you enjoyed that. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.